Hi, I'm John from Warragul Computer Repair. I'm here to chat about the new RTX 2080 Ti edition and also the 9th generation i9 CPU, which turbos up to 5 gigahertz without actually having to do any fancy stuff. The RTX 2080, the ray tracing, one of the most exciting things to happen to graphics cards for a very long time. We've heard a few people making bold comments on the internet, negative reviews and so forth. We'd like to debunk a few of those. And also we'd like to show something that's quite revolutionary with what Microsoft is doing with regards to NVIDIA's monopoly on monitors. And freeing up the market a little bit there. So first of all, let's have a look at one of the very few games that enables ray tracing. This here is Battlefield. Now, we're just sitting in a pool of water because that's what we like to do when we've got all these shadow effects. You can see here the trees, and actually not just the shadow, but the colour of the trees reflecting in the water itself. Which also not only reflects on water, it reflects on, if we see even the shadow there that my own self is casting on the rifle within grenade launcher, I think possibly, that we've got holding. There we go there. We can actually see that casting, but it's actually wrapping itself around. It's probably not a great example. We were looking at some boxes earlier where it was wrapping itself around. It's quite impressive. Look, there's plenty of videos there to show how impressive ray tracing is, but what we'd like to point out is that people are saying, oh, you turn up all your settings onto Ultra and you more or less lose your frame rate and so forth because ray tracing and so forth. But I'd like to draw the camera's attention over to this score in the bottom left-hand corner. It's clearly operating without any tearing, and we're running this at 1080. The card likes to run, as far as we're aware, I haven't got a 4K monitor to try it on, but it doesn't seem to be much difference from what I've read between 4K and 1080. So we're going to do all our tests in 1080 because it gives a good benchmark. But we can see here that our figure clearly states that we're getting 100 frames per second. Now, we're not getting that all the time. If I engage somebody with a lot of sprites and so forth, where typically we might get down to around 80 frames per second average, but it is clearly a lot more frames than what so many people on the internet are saying there is. But keep in mind, we have built this machine not to have any bottlenecks. Inside, we're utilising Intel's new Optane technology, which has a 60 gig, more or less, cache. It's sort of a hybrid between, it acts a little bit like memory, acts a little bit like cache, acts a little bit like a solid state. It's sort of that happy medium between everything, which just generally makes things run better, particularly if you're pulling data from a secondary drive. The other thing that we noticed was this screen here is a FreeSync screen. It is not a G-Sync screen, and a lot of people that have done enough research will know that typically you buy a NVIDIA card, you pair it with a G-Sync screen, so it talks to each other to get on these higher frame rates without getting the tearing. Now you can see here, for those that know, I won't bother going into what tearing is other than it just makes the screen look crap. You can see that it's not sort of going jagged edges and so forth and trying to recreate. We can just move that around as we see fit, and there is no tearing. And this is very interesting because we should, in theory, up until we started dealing with this type of card and the modern cards, what we would normally see is the tearing on a FreeSync screen would occur, but not necessarily on a G-Sync, because NVIDIA have patented G-Sync, and FreeSync is AMD's version of the same VESA standard, which is adaptive syncing specifically. But Microsoft seem to have brought the two together on 1809 update, which is what we're running on Windows 10, an insider preview. It seems to be pulling it together. Now, we'll have a look at the settings that we've got it set at. You can see here it's picked up the monitor as 144 Hz, which is what we're running. DirectX 12, DXR, which is our ray tracing, high dynamic range resolution. Look, we've pretty much put everything up. Nice. And why not? We'll have everything on ultra for the ray tracing too. Why not? Yeah, it's a 2080 Ti. You'd expect it. So, and then moving back to what we're saying our frame rate was, we're actually trying to put as much load on this card as we can, and to really see, okay, in a worst world scenario, what's it going to do? And this card is just more or less destroying everything that we throw at it. And a very exciting card, because as games come out, this is a benchmark. I'm expecting this card to be one that you would have in your system for many years and not having to upgrade it for a while. I can't imagine how you could get much better than this at this point in time. Although, and the big but is, when we paid $2,200 wholesale for this card, we really, really hurt parting with that money. And so, of course, the customer will, who, we're talking close to $6,000 for a setup like this. It's not a cheap setup. So you're expecting this sort of thing from this sort of setup. Of course, Australian prices, not American prices, GST and all the rest of it. This little thing here, of course, the i9 come in a nice little jewel case, quite fancy. I think they were looking at AMD's offerings of trying to make the outside look pretty to make people want to buy it. At the end of the day, it's what's inside that counts. That CPU is actually being underutilized in here, but the current technology seems to be pairing up nicely with the RTX. So my recommendation for anyone that's considering an RTX build, if you're going to spend massive dollars, go hard on everything. Don't just put in a big graphics card and expect everything else to play ball nicely. You're going to have to actually balance the system, which is what this one is. I mean, we've got effectively with the Optane there, and we'll just escape out of here. We'll just jump out. So we're sitting there. It has been hitting close to 5 gigahertz. So you can see total system memory effective is 92 gigabytes in total. It's not truly 90 gigabytes. It is a somewhat of a fudge together, but the end result is, for very little money, you can have quite a bit more freedom with the memory usage and so forth. But that's using the Optane. We started using these a little while ago, and I'm quite happy. Look, the value proposition of Optane is excellent. Certainly, if you were to just chuck in 64 gig of memory, maybe, but look, at the end of the day, these modules are quite cheap for what they are. We pair them up with, say, a 6 terabyte secondary drive, and it's got additional benefits within the machine. At the end of the day, the facts are in. The RTX 2080 Ti, yeah, it's a bit pricey, but that's pretty damn good too. The frame rate with the RTX is substantially better than what we were expecting, but provided we put a bit of extra gear in the build when we do it. You can't just go out and plonk an RTX 2080 Ti in an old computer and expect it to perform to the current standards. And the same goes for, you can't just go and grab a big V8 and shove it in a little 4-cylinder car without doing the suspension. There's a bunch of other stuff you've got to do too. So if you're going to lose, you are going to lose just by wasting money on just one primary component. You've got to spend across the board, including, I mean, we put a 1,000 watt power supply in this, and there's no way I would be putting anything less than that in it. We might even consider 1,200, but after running our monitoring, I'm quite satisfied with the 1,000 is more than ample with the unit itself. So yeah, overall, absolute big thumbs up for this configuration. Will I be building another one? Chances not, because you need deep pockets for it. It's an expensive build. As for this one, I'm going to be sad to see it go. It's getting picked up very shortly. By the time you see this video, it's already gone, and we'll have a happy customer playing Battlefield 5 with ray tracing and an exceptionally good frame rate. It'll be interesting to see how well it runs on his G-Sync monitor as opposed to the FreeSync one, but as we can see here, it was running perfectly well on the FreeSync screen. It still surprises us based on previous tests that we've run trying to pair up NVIDIA cards with FreeSync monitors and finding that things aren't quite as good as what we would like. Here, I can't tell the difference. It's really hard to see if there is any difference between running a FreeSync or a G-Sync. So that's a massive win. So my viewpoint is on the RTX is certainly 2070 cards. Excellent value. If I would say that would probably be my card of choice, 2070 or a standard 2080. But if you've got the pockets, it is certainly a fantastic card, the 2080 Ti.